Hello everybody and welcome back to a new episode of I Talk to Notebooks. My name is Sarah and today I'm going to be starting the first video in a two-part series on how to create Google Sheets, spreadsheets to help you gain some insight about your journaling practice and what works for you and what doesn't. And so today I'm going to show you how to make a spreadsheet that will help you understand which types of journals work best for you and inspire you the most. And next video in this series is going to be about which journals you actually it's going to be about how quickly you are making progress in your current journal and how it's going and when you will be most likely to finish it. So if you're interested in that, just keep watching. This tutorial is available to you whether you only have a mobile phone, an iPhone, an Android, a PC, a Mac, the most amazing PC setup you can imagine with lots of fancy bells and whistles, or something very, very simple like an old Android tablet. You will be able to do this. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to do it. All you need is a Google account, and I'm even going to show you how to make that. By the way, this is likely going to be, for some of you, very oversimplified and frustrating, and for others of you, very complex and annoying. And I'm doing my best to explain everything as well as I can. People have different levels of proficiency. I didn't know anything about Excel until I had experience at my first real job out of college. I got pretty good at it, understood why people like it so much, but before then, even though I majored in computer science, I didn't know how to make heads or tails of Excel. It just takes practice, and I'm gonna help you get some of that practice making something really cool. Also, if you are not interested in making this yourself, you can just download it. I'm gonna provide a link below, and at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you how you can just grab that yourself as a template and just use it without having any idea how it works. If you want, there's of course, as always, a table of contents in the description of this video, so you can just skip to that timestamp if you don't wanna watch all of this and just grab it for yourself. However, the reason I did want to show you how to make it is because if you understand how the sausage is made, you can make your own special sausages. It sounds really weird, with your own special twist, and you can make spreadsheets that calculate other things and give you other types of insights. So without further ado, let's get going. I've got an incognito tab in Chrome. You don't have to have that. The reason I have this is because I have a bunch of Chrome plugins installed on my computer, installed on my Chrome profile that for some reason they break drive. I don't know which one is breaking drive. I don't really care to know. So I just use incognito, and that auto disables all the extensions. So I'll go to drive.google.com, press enter, and it'll invite you here. You can click go to drive. And then if you have a Google account, you can sign in here with a Gmail account, or if you don't, you can just click create account and go along the process. I'm going to put mine in, and I'm going to put in my password. And this is all blurred out so that you can't hack me, obviously. Alright, so now that I'm on my drive, which is also blurred out, I'm going to click New and click Google Sheets. I'm going to be using the terms Excel and Google Sheets interchangeably because they are essentially the same program. Excel is just Microsoft's version that you have to pay for, and this one is completely free. So just click on that, and it will generate a new spreadsheet for you. And you can add multiple sheets down here, but we're just going to have one here, and we're going to call it Notebooks, because we're going to be calculating which notebooks work for us the best. And let's give this a name. We're going to call it the Journal Stats Example, because it's going to give us an example of journal statistics. So the first thing we want to do, I'm going to be flipping back and forth between the one that I have and the one that I'm making with you guys, because this one's already done and it's good for reference. But basically this goes through all the journals that I have, and I give them keywords associated by the type of notebook that I used for that journal. So you can see I had a lot of journals that I used that were from the dollar spot at Michael's, so I named those that. They weren't all the exact same journal, but that was as specific as I felt I needed to get. And some of them were small, like these petite ones or this spiritual themed one, and I wanted to retain that information, so I included the word petite in there so that, you know, maybe later I want to do a keyword search and see statistics about just the petite ones, and there's ways you can do that. Markings by Sarah Gibson is another big one. Mainly why I created this is because I had a strong suspicion that I had a much lower average on these than on any of the others. And yeah, I do. It's about 100 days fewer. So this is a journal that is really pretty impressive. So, having said that, let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is make the columns. So we need to have a numbering of all of our journals. So for this example, journal number, that's the column header, and we're going to do 1 through 10 for this example to keep it simple. So you can enter the number 1, And then you might think, if you know a little bit about sheets, you can just drag it down and it will auto-populate 1 through 10, but it doesn't. Those are all 1s. To get it to auto-populate from 1 to 10, you actually have to put 2 to show it that you want it to increment by 1. Select both of these and then drag down to 10. And now you have, oh whoops, I always forget I have to go 1 more because there's a header. Whoops. All right, now that one's no good. All right, 1 to 10. Then what do we have next? We have the notebook. We want to have our keywords. To keep this one simple, I'm just going to let us have 2 types of notebooks, notebook A and notebook B. So we're going to do A, B, A, B, B, A, B, B, A. And then we're going to have the day that the journal started, the start date, and the day that the journal ended, which is the end date. So we're going to start notebook A on the 1st of this year, and we'll give it a month long. Let's say this one took a little bit longer. We're going to have B be our bad journal. And these are only going to be about, they're going to be a little shorter. What am I doing here? We're going to have this one go to December, and this one's going to be in January to April. Oh my gosh, these B's are so bad, but don't worry, A is better. That one only takes a month this time. But oh no, we're back to B for some reason. We keep doing this to ourselves because we don't recognize any patterns because we haven't been making our spreadsheets. And let's try 8/4/2021. Let's take that out to December again. And then let's just have 12/5/2021, and we'll finish that right on New Year's Eve. So these are just example values. This is nothing real. There's no magic. I'm just deciding that I wanted, for this example, for the B journals to take longer to finish. This is the day that we started it, the day that we ended it. That's pretty straightforward. Now, let's do a couple of different metrics. So we want to do the total time in days, and actually for the sake of this example, it's going to be a little bit easier if we also include the total time in months and the total time in years. All right, so this is looking pretty good. So let's just make it look a little bit nicer though. So if you go to if you come up here to the line between column E and column F, the headers, you get a double arrow. If you double click on that, the column will auto widen to fit the width of the longest text. So nothing will be cut off. That's all I'm trying to say. So we're just gonna widen all of these. Let's make it stand out a little bit. Let's make these guys bold. And let's make them a nice light gray shade to make it stand out. And we need to open this again because the boldness made it, the letters take up more space, which is like the whole point. And then we're also going to bold these numbers and make them a light gray because they are just the numbers of the journal. This isn't really data that we're interested in or that can help us. It's just the numbers. Then we want to add some borders. So I want to put a nice line, a nice medium thick line. So you just go to this borders box. Over here's the thickness. You can make it medium thick and then just put medium thick border here. And I like to also do the rightmost borders. It'll remember that you picked medium thick last time. This time you just click the rightmost, select the cells you want. Control Y can just repeat the last thing you did. Control Y, Control Y, Control Y, Control Y, and let me show you something. If you click on the header, that'll actually do the whole column. I think that looks hideous, so I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to just do this again, but if I hit Control Y, it'll do the whole column, so I'm just going to do that. All right, so now that looks good, but we need to do our calculations. We want to find the total time in days that it took us to fill Journal A. If the start date was the 1st of January 2021 and the end date was the 1st of February 2021. Of course, there's some obvious stuff going on here. This is American date format. I believe, although I'm not sure, look it up, that Google Sheets will auto-detect your country or your location and will let you format the date accordingly. So if you're in some country that has logical sense and puts the day before the month, then it will auto detect that. You can also use hyphens, periods, whatever you want. Google Sheets is really smart and it will know that you're doing a date and will auto detect. And worst case, if it can't tell if it's messing it up, you can just manually select it down here and that will tell it that it's a date, any cell that you select. But we don't need to do that. So let's find out what the total time is. And to do that, we're going to need to use a formula. So formulas in Excel or Sheets, I'm using those terms interchangeably because they are basically the same application. You just start with the equal sign, And then you're gonna type in the name of the formula that you want to use. And in order to find the difference between two dates, Sheets gives us the date diff function, which finds the difference between two dates. Open parentheses, and it is going to tell you exactly how to use this function. It is amazing. You will never have to memorize anything because it will tell you exactly what you need to put in and where you need to put it in and which one you're putting in right now. So for example, right now we're putting in the start date, the end date, and the unit. So the start date we want is in the cell in column C at row 2. So that's going to be C2. That's the start date. They want you to put the start date before the end date. I messed this up before, but you put the start date in first. So that's going to be C2. I like to capitalize my letters, but you do not have to. Then you put a comma to indicate that you're starting the next parameter. End date, guess what it is? It's D2, it's 1 over, and the unit. Now the unit is just what unit you're getting it back in. We want to get days. So we're going to put D for days. And then you close the parentheses, you hit enter, and you get 31, which is awesome. Now if you just hit Control Enter, look, it automatically fills in all of these. But if you don't, sometimes it doesn't prompt you to hit Control Enter, so you just select this, grab that little corner, and pull it down, and it'll do the same thing. Those dates didn't change. And look, it's automatically calculating C2, D2, but for this one we want C3, D3, and it automatically moves those down for you because it's smart and it understands that that's what you would want to do automatically. Now let's say we want to have a total time column for some other table over here. We want it to be the same values as this, but we're just going to use it in a different context. We just want to copy this column. So let's select this and hit Control C and put this over here in column L. All you have to do is select the top cell and hit Control V. And what happened? That doesn't look good, right? Well, the reason is because Excel is treating all these formulas very in a relative sense. So what Excel sees here is that you are in this, the formula that you're typing is in this cell in column E, and it's in row 2. So we're going to keep the row the same all the time. We're going to change it. We're going to increment the row as we go down. And for columns, instead of C and D, Excel just sees D is the column 1 to the left of where I am, and C is the column 2 to the left of where I am. As you see, when you click this value, the formula appears up here. I should have mentioned that earlier. It's really important. Here, you can see the formula appears up here, and instead of C and D, it's saying J and K. Well, that's because just like D is 1 to the left of this cell, K is 1 to the left of this cell. Just like C is 2 to the left of this cell, J is 2 to the left of this cell. So we need to tell Excel, or Sheets, or whatever we're going to call this thing, that we want C and D to stay the same. We want the rows to keep changing. We want them to go from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and so on. But we want to always have C and D. So all you have to do for this is go in and put a $sign in front of the C and the D, and that's called an anchor, and that anchors those two columns. So hit enter. Don't forget to drag that straight down because this has not been applied to the full column. The numbers aren't going to change here, but if you copy it, Control C, and paste it, Control V, you get the exact same numbers over here. Isn't that awesome? Well, that's ugly, so we're going to leave it out. Now, this is going to be pretty simple. All we need to do here is we can actually just move this, click it, drag it over to the right. Wow, look, it's the same number. That's not right because we want months. Well, look, the C, the D are anchored. We want it to be in 2 because we're going to go 2, 3, 4, 5, so it's okay. But we need this to be in months, so we're just going to put M instead of D. Enter. We can do Control Enter, or we could have dragged it all the way down, and this is going to give you the total time in months for each journal. I'm not sure how it determines this, but I trust Google Sheets to do an accurate job. It probably depends on how many days are in the months involved, which is really cool. Then let's do it again. We're just going to drag this one over this time. C and D still anchored, but this time we need to have Y instead of M. That's going to give us the years. Look, we don't get the, whoops, this is supposed to be uppercase Y, I should think. I don't think it matters, but I want to have it. We don't get our prompt this time, but it's fine. We can just do that. And none of these are over a year long. In fact, let's make one of them over a year long. Let's make this B over a year long. Oh, look, those all updated, and now we have a much bigger number here, which is going to make things interesting later. So this by itself, I think, is reason enough to make a spreadsheet like this because it's cool, and you can see how long each journal took, and it's interesting. You do have to enter these manually, obviously. There's no way for Google Sheets to know when you started or ended a paper journal. All right, so now let's make some statistics. So we're going to make that over here. We're going to name this column Stat, because this is going to indicate the statistic we're calculating. This is going to be the value in days. This is going to be the value in months. And this is going to be the value in years. Now, what statistics do we want to calculate? How about we find the longest journal we have so far? Let's find the shortest journal we have so far. And let's find the average time that it takes for us to fill a journal out of all of these. Now let's just make this pretty again. Same thing, you click this paint bucket and you just get any shade you want. I like to use light gray. There we go. I like to make all of that bold. I like to make all of that bold. I like to put, not gonna do that. Click on the border. Medium is already selected, so we just put one below. And we can put one to the right, still selected. Then we can just Control Y to do the same thing over and over again. And look, that looks lovely. That didn't even take that long. All right, now how do we calculate the longest journal that we have so far? Well, that's pretty easy. In terms of days, we just need to find the biggest number in this column. That's the largest one. The work has already been done for us. So we're going to use another formula that can just find that value right away. Because imagine if you have like 100 journals, which I know a lot of you do. This is going to be freaking enormous, and you don't want to be looking through, like trying to see with your eyes which one's the biggest. So you just hit equals to indicate a formula. The formula we're using this time is called max, and we're going to put in a range. So we want it to be from E, which is the column that has the time in days. We're going to do E2 because that's where it starts. E1 is the header. And then the colon says, okay, so that's the first one. And then the last one we want all the way down to, well, we could do E11, and that would do it. So we get 487, which is the biggest value. But like, what if we want to have more? What if we wanted to go, are we gonna have to go back and change this every time? No, you can actually do to the bottom of the column forever. E2 to E. Enter. That'll also give you 487. And if I put a number down here like 600, it'll change to 600 because it's calculating the whole thing. But we don't need that. Another thing I want to do is, just for my peace of mind, I want to keep the E anchored. I also want to keep the 2 anchored, because to get the longest journal, we need to take into account all of our journals, which means we do need to start all the way up here. And it should only ever be this column for time and days. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. It just makes me feel a little bit more at ease. Oh, actually, you know what you should do is you should not anchor the E. You should leave the E alone, but you should keep the 2 in place, because you do want it to start at 2 for all these statistics we're going to calculate. And later we can just drag these over and it'll autofill for us. So there you have it. For shortest one, we want to find the smallest number here. Guess what the opposite of a maximum is? That's right, a minimum. So we use min. And we're going to do the exact same thing. E, we're going to anchor the 2 in place and then do E. Nice. The smallest number is 16, as you can see with your eyes, because we used a small example. For average, this one is really going to blow your mind. It's average. And Google Sheets even saw the word average next to it and knew that we were going to do average. So Google Sheets is pretty much already reading your mind. Same thing. E2 is going to stay the same to E. All right, 99.9, that's our average. Probably because this guy's pulling it up. Oh, you know another fun one to do? I always forget to put this one in, but we can do the mode. So we got 2 90s here, so that's going to be the most common number of days for a journal to last. I don't know how often you would need to use this, but I just think it's cool. Oh, it's the wrong color. That's going to drive me bonkers. All right, so let's do equal mode. Oh, it's right there. You better believe it. Not even hard to find. Same thing. We get, 92. 1, 2. Oh, I guess because it's tied with 90. And I guess because maybe 92 appears first. Let's add 2 days onto this, just so we can sleep at night. Okay, there we go. And that average went up as well because I just added a little bit. Okay, so now if we want to do this in months, we just need it to be column F. And since we did not anchor these E's when we move this over here, it's going to go to F. Look, see? That makes sense, right? Then just drag these over here. And as my mom would say, in 2 shakes of a lamp sale, we have completed it. That is all of our statistics for longest, shortest, average time, and most common number of days for it to be. So that was really fast and really interesting, and this is not so nice to look at. Let's do one more thing. Let's do a keyword search. I mean, not a keyword. I mean, it is a keyword search. Let's see the average time for notebooks in A in days, and the average time for B notebooks in days separately from each other. And that way, that's the really useful information, because then you can tell if A is inspiring you more or B is inspiring you more. Now, of course, that's assuming that A and B are the same size and have the same number of pages and so on and so forth, and that no, big life event was happening where you either journaled a lot or didn't journal very much. All these things are things that you already know in your head. It may be helpful to try to incorporate those types of calculations into the spreadsheet, and there are probably ways to do it. You can get creative, you can get Googling, or if you want help, I can help you. I will answer any question. I have no life and I love this stuff, so just ask me if you want to know how. Or even if you just want me to make you a spreadsheet, I can try. As long as it's not like super complex, I'll do my best, because I love doing this stuff. I mean, I wish I had more ideas for what I want to know. But, you know a lot of that stuff in your head. For example, if I go back to my page, these little tiny Michael's journals, they were still took me longer to finish than these much bigger Markings by C.R. Gibson journals. And I know that's not because these are smaller, because they're not. They're a lot bigger and they have a lot more pages. These just don't really inspire me as much, so that's why they took longer. You know, stuff like that as well. So let's assume all things are equal, and we just want to see A and B. So let's do average time days for A, average time days for B. We're going to do our usual thing here, clicking that, making that bold. We're going to expand the size of that column and this column. And we're going to add a little medium-sized border underneath. And there we go. Now we need another formula to figure this out. And luckily, Sheets has the perfect thing. It's called average if, which means we're taking the average of values in a column, but only if there's something true about them that you get to specify. So right now, for A, we want to take the average of this column, E, total time in days, but we only want to take into account these cells if there's also an A in the same row of column B. So we want to get this one, but not that one. So we're deciding which ones to include in our average calculation based on what's going on over here in column B. So equals to get a formula, average if, and look, this is really simple. So the criteria range is the range that the if range. So if there's an A at this row in column B, then include this in your calculation. So B is actually the criteria range because that's where the criteria are. The criteria are, is it A or is it B? That's what determines whether or not we factor this in. It's a little confusing because we're talking about these numbers, but this is the criteria because this is what determines whether we take these numbers or not. So since we're doing, now we want to think ahead because we're going to want to do B soon. But it actually turns out that this is not going to make much of a difference. So I'm going to anchor everything because I just prefer to be safe than sorry and to de-anchor later. So we're going to do B2. I'm anchoring both because we want to start at 2 and we want it to be B. B. So we're going to do the whole column, comma. Now what's the criterion itself? What is it that we're looking for? Well, we want it to be A. We want it to be an A in column B. So we actually enter quotation marks, which means take this seriously. This is literal. And you can put a lot of stuff in here. If it's numbers, there's an example here of greater than 20 you could use as a criteria, but we just want it to equal the letter A. That is it. Do not put a space after that A. Do not mess it up. If you are writing complex stuff, make sure you type it correctly every single time because at the end of the day, Sheets is a computer. It can't literally read your mind. And if you make a typo, it's going to miss that because it can't tell the difference between a simple typo and a genuine distinction that you're trying to make. Duh. Okay. Then the average range is what we want to take the average over. If you leave it out, it'll average this out over here. It'll just average the same column that was the criteria column. But what would be the point of averaging these A's and B's? I don't even know what that would look like. So we're just going to stay away from that and we're going to do E2 to E because guess what? That's the entire column of the total time in days. And that's what we want to actually get the average of based on the values in column B. Have I explained this 3,000 times? Sarah, we get it. Okay, I'm sorry. Enter. 29.6 is the average time, which makes sense because I had these be about a month each for A. Looks like we got a little bit under it down here. Let's see what B has. Let's just drag this over and, oh my gosh, it's identical. Well, no, it isn't. Thing is, Sheets can't actually detect this stuff in here because this is a literal expression. It could be anything. It doesn't know that we're talking about A's and B's. So we actually have to switch that to B manually. 170.6, that looks about right to me because this outlier brought things way up. So anyway, that's going to be the tutorial for today. That is everything I wanted to share with you. Oh, one more thing actually. I do want to show you how you can receive the link below. So I've included a link of a template. If you want to do this exact same thing and just put your own numbers in and your own like words in, you can do that. All you would have to do is change what you're calling this stuff and then change this stuff in here, like this criteria, and you could add more columns and change the criteria. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. You can do it pretty easily. So let me just show you how to do it. All right, so I'm just gonna paste in this link here as if it is my first time clicking on the link. It's gonna take me to the same place as if you clicked on a link. This is just a test shared file to show you how it works. And I can see it, even though I'm not signed in. So you don't have to be signed in, but if I want to edit it, now you can only view this. So what you have to do is go to your drive here. So it's gonna auto sign you in. You click on shared with me because now that you've clicked it, it's shared with you. And down here it says test share, you double click on that. Oh no, you can still only view it. That's fine. Just right click, click on make a copy. Then you can say it created it in your drive. So you go back to my drive, and this is gonna go down to, go to C for copy of test share, double click on that. And now you can edit it to your heart's content without any worries. And you can name it anything you want and you're all good to go. All right, that's it for this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Let me know if you have any questions, any requests, you want me to make something for you, or you want to see more examples. Whatever it is, you let me know. But next week, we're gonna talk about your specific journal. Bye.